Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Mike, let's start with the big news of the week out of New Orleans. The trade deadline came and went, and the Saints add former LSU linebacker Kwon Alexander. What'd you think of the move?
Well, I liked it. Again, we all sort of know the story with Kwon. He's had a long history of injuries, dating back to a high school player at Oxford High School in Alabama, where he had a bad knee injury as a senior. Picks LSU over Alabama and Auburn. I think he's a first-year starter as a freshman, breaks his ankle. He's had a major knee injury with the Bucks, torn pectoral muscle last year, high ankle sprain. So, when he's healthy, man, he's a heck of a player. Can run the field extremely well. Great athleticism, tremendous leader in the locker room and out on the field. He's a little bit of a freelance player, which sometimes he'll get himself out of position to make a play, but for the most part, man, he gets it done. And also he can drop in coverage. He's a better guy as far as matching up in the coverage part of the game than Alex Anzalone. So I like the trade. I really do. Hopefully he can stay healthy. If he's healthy, he can really help a football team. And, when you get paid a lot of money like what the 49ers did with him, you sort of become frustrated that, okay, he's not on the field. It's one thing after another, and maybe we just ought to cut bait and move on. And that's exactly what happened here. And then they get a player who's an older version of him, and Kiko, who's a really good player also. It's just to keep him healthy. When he has been healthy, if you look at the numbers, Kwon has been a guy that is averaging around 100 tackles a year. And that's pretty strong in this league. And he's going to play the will, which means he goes up against Anzalone. He won't play this week, but hopefully, we'll see him the following. And I like it. I think it's not a secondary guy, or it's not a pass rusher, because that's not what he does. He's not a pass rush guy. I've had a lot of people ask me about it. That's just not what he does. This is east-west skills and his ability to drop in coverage. He's never been a get-up-the-field, rush-to-quarterback guy. Mm-hmm. But, he's one heck of an athlete when he's healthy, and I think it's a good addition to this team. Hopefully, knock on wood, stays healthy.
We will. Kwon will not be available for the Bucs game on Sunday Night Football. We'll get a full preview of that game in the next segment, Mike. But let me shift from the news about Kwon to what the heck happened on the Plains last week. I mean, LSU goes into its bye, and they're really doing some soul searching, Mike. Is, from your standpoint, is anything salvageable this season for LSU defensively?
It's a good question. I wish I had a better answer. At this point, man, you're making all these mistakes. Ed's talked about over 50 big plays they've given up, chunk plays. Man, you're not winning anything with that. And, the communication doesn't seem to be right. Just the wavelength, the body language on this defense. I never thought I'd see a team being able to turn the corner running the football on LSU. The big plays through the air, you see it a lot in college football. Well, not as much as you see it against LSU, but you do see it quite a bit. But, man, to run the football, I didn't think I'd see that. And so there's a disconnect here. And I've always felt coaching is teaching. Matt, I could know something and know it very well and try to teach you, but if you don't get it, it's useless. It's useless for my time and your time. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. And that seems to be with this football team today. They really don't. For whatever's being thrown at them, they don't get it. And because you can't make those same mistakes over and over and over again, time after time after time. And I think along with not playing the run well is where's the leaders on this football team? You got guys cutting up on the sidelines, laughing and joking. Okay, because I've talked to a lot of former LSU players. That wasn't happening when they were there. Yeah. Their deal is, man, somebody's going to get in your face and sit you down. And that's not the coach doing that. That's a player doing that. That we're not going to put up with this. And is this team living a little bit still off of 2019? Still breathing in that air? It's eye of the tiger. You lost it. And you didn't realize, the heartbeat, the sweat, the tears, the tough losses, the big wins that team went through in that cycle to get to the national championship game and win it. It's different when you drive in the train than sitting riding in it. And a lot of these players were riding last year. They weren't driving the train. And you can lose it. It's quickly. You can lose it. And you can say, yeah, you know what? We'll get it next week. We'll do it. We'll learn a little bit better tomorrow. We'll work a little bit harder tomorrow. And there is no tomorrow. You got to do it now. And so it's a soul-searching time across the board here that I don't know how much better you can get defensively. And up into the Auburn game, I thought you had played reasonably well on offense and good enough to win. But, again, you see offensive line issues. And we talked about that all during the spring and summer. That was the big question mark for me. It was two things offensively. How well they would be able to match up the physicality of that offensive line of a year ago, and you losing Sadiq Charles and Lloyd Cushenberry and what he meant to this team. And, Adrian McGee was a really good college player. And you think about that, those guys, playing in, all of them, with the exception of Adrian, all playing in the NFL today. And the physicality, where is it? Man, they soft as cotton. They're getting pushed right back into the backfield. That running back got no shot to really make a play. And the other part, too, is who would take Clyde's place as a receiver coming out of the backfield? That's a gift, to be able to set up a defensive back or a linebacker and get free downfield. Clyde was great at it a year ago. He's just wonderful. The route running skills, the ability to set you up, and then once he catches it, then it was to tackle him. Have you seen anybody that could do that? Anybody this year that can do it? And that's not, that part is really missing from this lineup on, guess what, 3rd and short. And Clyde would get it for you as a receiver coming out the backfield. Or you'd get that with the little slant pattern with Justin Jefferson. 3rd down conversions, Joe Brady told me this a year ago, it's always about finding 4 or 5 plays that work. And come 3rd down, you make sure that you call in one of those 4 or 5 plays that you really have a belief will work because it's worked in practice and it'll work on game day. And can they hang a hat on anything offensively other than getting it to Terrace Marshall? And so now you got it on both sides. The Auburn game, I had a lot of mixed feelings on it. I don't think this is a really good Auburn team to begin with. But Kevin Steele, I knew, would give them issues because, you go back a year ago, he gave LSU fits defensively. And what he threw at Joe, and even Joe brought it up, Burrow, that, man, he threw stuff at us we hadn't even seen on film. And that was a lot of confusion. And you can say, well, TJ Finley didn't play well. He didn't have a shot. He did turn the ball over. He sailed one. And he tried to do too much with the football on the fumble. Come on, you're not at Ponchatoula again. These guys are going to be trying to knock that ball out of there. And I know you're bigger, but still, man, they got a knack of doing it. And you got to take the sack. But after that, it was all over with. But the shouting, Auburn just hit the accelerator. And so, again, no running game. You got to protect your young quarterback with a running game. And they didn't do that. But again, defensively, the offensive stuff I think you can maybe get better with defensively. Doesn't every week somebody – and the first questions they ask Oshiro is, boy, your defense really played well for a couple of downs. What? You mean to tell me you're going to start questions and answers and say, boy, Ed, man, Coach, your defense really played well the first 2 series. Well, what happened to the other series? Come on. This is a 4-quarter game. And take the fact that Derek Stingley Jr. being a great player pops the ball out of Seth Williams' arms. Man, I thank God I ain't a coach. That's all I can tell you. Man, because I would have exploded on that. That you're going to bring that up about, you got the ball back after 2. Come on. This is a 4-quarter game, and that's the best questions you have to ask him? I don't get it. I really don't. This is a bad defense. You can sugarcoat it all you want. They're not coached well. They're not a physical team. They make mental mistakes, breakdowns. They don't take good angles to the football. However you want to cut it, just because you stopped them twice, what happened to the rest of the game? I mean, Matt, believe me, that would drive me up the wall. I know you played bad, but to hear it afterwards is even worse. And then for me, I got to do post-game TV. Listen, I would have paid them a year ago to do it. I told Doug Muto on Channel 4, I'd pay you guys to have done it a year ago. I mean, I need a raise this year to do that after Mississippi State in this game.
Mike, let's delve into it, man. These two teams met in week 1. Saints emerged victorious. Feels like a very different Tampa Bay team now. Let's start with the personnel on Tampa that they've added since the Saints and Bucs first played. Obviously, Fournette is becoming a bigger part of the offense. And then this week, Antonio Brown was activated. What role do you think those two guys play on Sunday?
Let me throw this out. I think one thing that's being overlooked a little bit, because certainly I understand from covering the team, with the addition of Leonard, with the addition of Antonio Brown, but how well their defense has played. I think that somewhat gets overlooked here. Todd Bowles is really one of the best defensive coordinators in pro football. And the development of the young players on that side of the football, if it's Devin White, if it's Carlton Davis at cornerback, and I told you the story last year, man, Michael Thomas spun him around like a top. It got to the point where they actually pulled him from the lineup, and he was on the bench because Thomas was beating him. I mean, play after play after play. And, you could see he was demonstrative and everything else. But Carlton Davis now has become really one of the better cover cornerbacks in the NFC. And certainly Antoine Winfield Jr. just done a fantastic job. And you saw Monday night, even though it was a bad pass by Daniel Jones, he got his hands on it and sort of made sure that it wasn't going to be the completion. I think that jumps out at me as that they look like a much more confident and better defense than they did in week 1 against New Orleans. Week 1, Brady was hussing and cussing because they could not protect him well. There was pressure. He was not on the same page as his receivers, and you could see visibly upset that nothing was working. And the Saints gave him a good tanning in that game. They rely a little bit more on the running game today with Ronald Jones and with Fournette than they did back in week 1, even though I thought Jones had a pretty good game. And now you got a guy that is in the same groove as Brady, because you can see down and distance situations, he's looking for Gronk. Red zone, short yardage, he's looking for the big guy. And certainly you got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And all of a sudden, Antonio Brown comes into the picture. And there's a certain connection where General Manager Tom Brady wanted him on that team. They can say what they want. Yeah, that was never going to be that move without Brady saying, no, I want Antonio Brown on this football team. Even though they played just a short time together in New England, the bond between the two of them, and it's Brown's route running skills and his ability to get into and out of a sharp cut and a break. He's a master at it. Now, I think you'll see a teaspoon size of Antonio Brown. Now, I think somebody's going to get the tablespoon real quick. But Brady trusts him. Yeah, Brady trusts him as a receiver and where he's going to be. And there is that certain connection when you know where that guy is and you trust he's going to get open. So I think the Saints will see a little bit of Antonio Brown. I think when they play the third time in January, you're going to get the tablespoon if he's still on the team. So this is a talented offensive team. Right now, they're playing as well as anybody in the NFL with the one exception of the Steelers. and that's why they're undefeated. And they're a really good football team. And we talked about it week one. The time you're going to see them again, they're going to be different. And I always felt to start the year that they would split the series. The Saints would win at home. The Bucs would win when they play in Tampa. And I still feel that way today. They didn't play well Monday night. They looked like a team that was looking, for Sunday night football against the Saints. They weren't looking to play the Giants and almost got caught there. They didn't seem to be mentally focused on the Giants very well. But this is a totally different team, a very good football team. And, for the Saints, fortunately, you'll get back Emmanuel Sanders. Marquez Callaway looks as though he'll be back. And hopefully we'll get to see Michael Thomas. And that hope is there because he was limited in practice today, but he was still practicing. And so that's the good news about it going again. At least you're kind of playing them with a full deck instead of having to play them with, second, third string receivers. So it ought to be one whale of a football game against the Bucs. And I think it's a really tight football game. I think these teams will play close the next two times they play. And I think they'll play close Sunday night and again when they play again in January.
Assuming they're going to play in the playoffs, Mike. You've mentioned that probably a half dozen times in that answer. So I'm not telling you I'm super looking forward to that, but I guess it would be great theater. Let's elaborate a little more, Mike, on the health of the Saints. We know, as you mentioned, Callaway participated. Emmanuel Sanders is going to be out there. We're all assuming that Mike Thomas will be back. So how does that change what New Orleans does on Sunday in particular against that Tampa defense?
Man, running those hard slant patterns, 3rd and 6, might get you 8. And you saw there was rapport starting to be built between Drew and Emmanuel before, the COVID situation. So that really helps this football team out in being able to keep Brady and company off the field. And, again, we're not sure about Kamara. I mean, he talked about the foot injury and, stumping the toe and everything else. And, man, they've really pumped him the ball because they've had to. That's kind of your road to success basically went through Alvin Kamara the last 3 or 4 weeks. So it gives you another option there in that short, middle-range passing area of the field, which Drew excels at, to have Mike on the field. He's a big target receiver. He knows how to get his body between the ball and the defender. And Sanders has got some big play elements with him. And he causes you to stretch the field. In essence, you can't stay in a lot of different defensive form. You got to mix and match here. And that's what Drew wants. He wants you to show him a certain defense he can kind of pick on you. And in week 1, that's what he did. Bowles tried to do a little mixing and matching, but Drew kind of caught him, in different sets. He didn't throw the football deep downfield, but he kind of caught him in between those areas and just kind of pack, and sort of went after him a little bit because Bowles doesn't want to give up that long medium play. And one of the things the Bucs, and I do weekly work in Tampa, one of the things that has been brought up about Todd is really stresses upon don't give up the run after catch and stressing the tackling after a receiver catches the football, not to give up extra yardage. That's something to watch in this game because I do think they put so much emphasis on it that, and I think a lot of it has to do with defensively, how they play, that, man, if you can break loose of that tackle, you got some yardage afterwards. But you got to win it up front. Their front is really good. Got a couple big vets in there. Jason Pierre-Paul and Ndamukong Suh. And Ndamukong, when he wants to, man, he's a tilt-the-field player. But isn't this team built around the linebackers, Devin White, Levante David? I mean, everything sort of flows through those two particular guys. So, man, I'm telling you, and Sean loves the challenge because nobody's picking them this week. Virtually no one's picking them. Everybody's picking the Bucs at home. And he thrives on that type of challenge that, okay, you're going into hostile territory. The Saints have played well on the road, but this is a different Bucs team than you saw in week 1. Man, all I know is that gets under the backside of Breeze and Sean pretty good. That you kind of count, everybody's sort of counting them out. That's why I think this is razor close.
Obviously, a super disappointing week for LSU on the football field, but it wasn't all lost because the Tigers over the weekend did land a pair of in-state commits, which one of them was massive considering that at this point a week ago, Mike, nobody thought Sage Ryan was picking LSU, and then they land the 5-star safety, which they obviously needed. Let's start with Sage Ryan and talk about, as a prospect, what you see from Sage Ryan, what makes him so highly sought after.
Well, I'll give her props. That was one, because we spoke. Julie Boudouin.
Mm-hmm.
Julie and I were kind of talking about certain things, and she really was convinced that Sage was going to end up at LSU because of the ties. And, we had heard all the rumors, and I don't follow it maybe as close as some others do, how that sort of takes the road. But she was very confident that he would sign with LSU. So I'm going to give her props. Julie did a great job with it. Sage reminds me a lot of Marcus May, the former University of Florida cornerback who's now starting with the Jets at free safety. When Marcus was in high school, he was a cornerback, running back, nickel back, free safety, return punts and kicks. Look at the resume of Sage Ryan. And they sort of almost have the same size exactly when they came out of high school. And so there's a lot of similarities there, a lot of athleticism there with the two guys. That was a big commitment. This football team needs safety help. I think that's one of the things that has shown up big this season, that they have not matched up well, especially in the safety position, where you're handing off to the safety. He's got to cover these guys one-on-one. So that was a big pickup, certainly from LSU, and the big push from Alabama to get him. And that was a lot of Alabama people that thought they had him. Mm-hmm. They thought they had Sage. And so certainly that's a huge commitment. But the comparison for me is Marcus May. And I remember LSU was after Marcus when he came out of high school in Florida. So his skill set is similar to May. When I look at Jack, now this is going back a few years now, he reminds me of Brian Kinchin. Because when Brian came out of university, high school in Baton Rouge, he was sort of a hybrid tight end wide receiver. You look at Jack, he ain't your regular built wide receiver, and he's played some tight end. And I think that the way LSU uses their tight ends today, he's perfect for that position. Again, he's a little bit hybrid in that mode, and I think he's got the frame to get bigger. He's a sure-handed guy. He's got some scoop after the catch. And I think that whatever he weighs, 210, 212, 215, he won't stay that weight. That second number won't be a 1 for too much longer. He'll flip that scale pretty good. And he's a good pickup for LSU for what they do offensively and how they use their tight ends in being able to spread it out. Because you're basically kind of part receiver, part tight end at that point. And so that was a big pickup. And Julie and I were talking about this. I'm still a little bit surprised it took so long for everybody to get on the train with him. And then what had happened in 9 days, he got an offer from LSU, Missouri, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, TCU. I mean, everybody was stuffing the mailbox all at one time. But you knew once he got the LSU offer, he wasn't going to turn that down. He was headed to the LSU. So for what they do offensively, I think it's a really good fit. But the comparison would be Brian Kinchin. And, Brian really stretched out his career because he was a deep snapper in the NFL. But, Brian was a really good receiver for LSU. Now, you got to go back in the 80s to remember that. But that was Brian. I mean, he was a really good, sure-handed receiver. And I think Jack will do the exact same thing there. And he's a nightmare mismatch downfield. If you put him as a receiver in the slot or you put him as sort of that hybrid tight end, he's going to be a 6'3+ guy, 220, 225, and he got some wheels on him. So that was a good pickup for LSU because of what they do offensively. I think he fits in so well.
Do you think that means LSU's done at receiver for this class?
I think it's done. I really do. I think now, you got to flip it real quick, And certainly Mason is number one on the list now, being a Louisiana guy. I think it'll be in December. He'll make that decision. He's a midterm guy, so he's going to sign in that. Is it December 19th? I think.
I don't know the date, Mike, but yeah.
It's somewhere in that range. But he's going to come in midterm for LSU, and from what I hear from a number of people, they still very much in the hunt for Corey Foreman. And that's interesting because I've been told maybe Georgia has kind of fallen back a little bit. They wanted to play him as an outside linebacker. He wants to play defensive end as a 4-3 guy. So I think this comes down now between LSU and Southern Cal, but for Corey Foreman. And then you got to concentrate on your offensive line. I think that's a high priority area for this football team. They've got to get bigger, more physical players up front. And I think if there's a spot for a running back, I do think that spot is there for him. And I do think that they'll try to make a pitch for a running back. But, one of the things Ed has brought up numerous times in public, and if you talk to him in private, is that he wants to get 22 to 23 commitments in December. Remember last year, he thought he had that number. And then what happened late? I think there was 3 guys that decided to go elsewhere. I don't think he wants to be sitting with 5 scholarships from December into the February signing date. I think he wants to hit that at least 22 number. And if you got a couple left over, that's fine. But I think he's making a big push to try to get 22 to 23 signees come December. And so that's going to limit you now if you throw in, if you would land Mason, if you would land Corey Foreman, if you get even one offensive lineman, which I expect they will, you really struggling now scholarship-wise of what you got left. And so if it's not another lineman, I wouldn't be surprised it's at the running back position.
Mike, they've only got one offensive lineman committed in Garrett Dellinger right now, and I know they're in on Tristan Lee. Would you really go a class and only sign one offensive lineman?
No. That number is going to tip a little bit. It's going to be higher than that. And if you have an extra spot and you sign a second lineman, which I expect that they certainly will, I think that spot would be for either a grad transfer, which I think that's what they would probably prefer to do at this stage. And also, too, the other thing you got to think about is the fact that this is sort of the lost year, that the guys can come back and play that senior year. So Ed's got to go re-recruit the Glenn Logans, the Neil Farrell Juniors. He's talked about Liam Shanahan.
Yeah.
Now, it might be a tough sell with Ed Ingram because I think he's the one guy that, you can see, man, that guy can play at the next level. Ed Ingram can play at the next level. You might have some difficulties with some of the other guys, but those individuals we spoke about, to try to re-recruit that, because the big difference between what's happened at LSU and what's happened, say, at Clemson and Alabama, they rarely lose a guy that's a middle or a late round pick. Those guys decide to stay. Now, it's hard to convince a guy, if you're going to get picked in round 1 or in round 2, to come back. That's difficult. You might say it's easy, but it's difficult because you know what happens? You got a lawyer, an agent in their ear, or a trainer saying, hey, listen, even if you're a second round pick, come work out with me. I can get you in round 1. That sort of thing happens. And so you understand it. But if you're given a 4th or 5th round pick grade or maybe a late round pick free agent, one of the things Nick and Dabo, I think, have done better than anybody has been to convince those players to come back and play that final season. LSU struggled with that with Les Miles, and the struggles continue with Coach O. To convince those players, hey, listen, you can come back and upgrade your draft stock. You're going to lose players. It's part of the commuter world. But, man, to convince those seniors and have a little bit more maturity, on your football team, I think would be huge for LSU, especially in the trenches where it's difficult for you to say, I'm going to play that freshman, that 18-year-old. Let him go up against that guy that he's going up against who's 22 years old.
Yeah.
There's a difference between an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old young man. That's a big difference. And so some guys can make that adjustment pretty well. But I would say for the most part, you got troubles there when you start starting or playing a lot of true freshmen right off the bat. Those guys are special when they can do that from a size, speed, and how they handle a bigger, quicker guy that they haven't seen that at the high school level. Man, they're just throwing guys off.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yep.
You 300-something pounds and you playing up against a 200-pound guy? Man, I see some of these films cut out, and man, say, man, look at that block that guy made. And I'm saying, man, look, the guy knocked down. Put him on the scale, and his second number's 1. He's like 214. He's 330 pounds. Come on, you got to understand that that's not going to happen in the SEC. That ain't happening. So I think it is a crucial part of the puzzle for 2021. And I know we're talking ahead of the game here, but I think it's a crucial part of 2021 to re-recruit those guys that would not be early round picks to come back and play another season at LSU. And that's what Nick has done very well. That's what Dabo has done very well.
Ask Mike, Florida or Georgia?
Now, listen, every time these matchups come up, everybody want to tell me how great Georgia's defense is. Okay, we done went through this spiel already. Man, I'm going with Florida here.
Yeah, we did against Bama. You're right.
I mean,
You're right.
It's twice a year. Everybody throws this out. Man, watch Georgia's great defense. What? I saw them get demolished against Alabama. I saw them get demolished against LSU in the SEC championship game. Now, I think Florida gives up a lot of yardage, a lot of points. But does this offense really scare you for Georgia? Stetson, I mean, God bless him. I pull for him. But, man, give me Trask. Give me Trask any day of the week, and I want to see how they match up against Pitts. Because that dude, man, I'm only telling you, I ain't seen nobody slow him down. He is a monster football player. And so, listen, I'm going to go with Florida here. Because I get conned. You can get conned into it, but I'm against the con. I done seen it already. I'm going with Florida.
Pierce Lee says, ask Mike, how does Ed Ingram grade out with the NFL scouts?
I think he's probably a late second, early third round pick right now. Now, he's an athlete, and he is a physical player. The one guy they got up front that's physical, it's Ed Ingram. And so the off-the-field issues are going to come into play with him. That's no question. Stuff like that always has a negative effect on you. But I think he's one of those guys, when he works out, they're going to say, wow, that guy can play. So I think probably right now you're looking at a late second, early third-round pick. He's a top 100 pick.
Greg says, ask Mike, why did Adrian McGee not make an NFL squad?
Man, in this year, it is difficult to be anywhere.
Yeah.
He was with the Saints, and, it's a difficult situation when you don't have the OTAs, you don't have the summer workouts. And the Saints did have some. We saw Marquez Callaway make it, at a position they needed it. Saints were pretty stocked and that's where they were playing him inside.
Yeah.
But I think Adrian plays again. I think some NFL team will definitely sign him because he's a hybrid player that can play both guard and right tackle.
30 seconds, Mike. Kevin asks, has Cam Jordan regressed?
He hasn't played as well this year. I thought he played his best game against the Bears, to be honest with you. That was the best game of the season for him. He's catching a lot of double-team action, though. They know it. They're going after him with double-team, and he's just got to fight through it.
SaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com, Saints News Network, and with us every Thursday, he is the one and only Mike Detillier on Twitter, at Mike Detillier. Mike, to you the man. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Matthew.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.